good deal. So, thanks for coming. Now, when we launched the beta, or beta, for Jeremy, version of beta of Backstage, we gave Ben a little heads up, and he managed to, I think, get the first blog entry in there for Backstage. And I think it said something along the lines of, the consequences of what the BBC are doing here quite literally make you want to shit. His words. So I was thinking about the conference and thinking to myself, we should get some t-shirts done with Backstage on it. And of course, what should we put on the back? So great it makes you want to shit. But unfortunately, the BBC policy people didn't really like that idea, so I haven't bought any, I'm afraid. But if you wanted to know, there's always cafepress.com or whatever it's called, so have a look there. So before I start, let me just do the obligatory, this is Creative Commons license with attribution, commercial, non-commercial, yada yada yada. And if you want to have a look at the presentation, it will be up on that website address at the end. And if I get already copies of videos or audio or anything, then I'll try and link to them from there as well. So there you go. So just very quickly what we're going to talk about today. Let me just check my time, make sure I've got time. So, introduction. For those of you who don't know what Backstage is, hopefully everyone does, because I've been pouring myself to death with the media outlets trying to make sure everyone does know what it is, but maybe you've been on Mars or something, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe you just don't care. But hopefully I'll be able to go through it a bit quickly. Then the actual launch, which are loads of whooping and hollowing, I hope, for the launch. Then our big announcement, which will be interesting. Unless you've read BBC News Online this morning already, which actually has already published it, and I'll have some embargo till 3 o'clock, yeah. And if we've got time at the end, I'll do a quick brief showcase of some of the cool prototypes that we've had submitted so far, because at the end of the day, that's the key part of the project, is what the cool stuff that you guys obviously build. So here's the introduction. So, in case you don't know what it is, I'll just go very quickly through these slides. Backstage is a developer network. We saw that Yahoo were about to launch one, Google had one, Amazon had one, and we looked at the benefits that those companies were obviously getting from opening up the dialogue with expert users and developers who are interested in their products. And we thought ourselves, we'll have a bit of that, that's really interesting. But generally, no, there were some really good benefits to it that we could always see that those companies were getting out of it, and we were quite keen to do the same. So the Creative Backstage, which is ultimately a platform for us to share some of our content at the moment, at least with you guys, to do cool things with. And on there there's also a community of other developers, peer conversation, you know, there's all sorts of interesting ideas that have come up on our email discussion list, so if you're not already on it, check it out. And we came up with a little license for the BBC just to allow us to give you access to the content, which was obviously at the time not possible. When we first wanted to do Backstage, we had to get the lawyers in the room and knock their heads together until they agreed something, and that was a bit of work, but that's not for now, I guess, to think about. It's in the distance. But ultimately, it is an opportunity for you to connect with us and for us to connect with you and to feed back into the creative process. And why are we doing it? Well, it's part of a greater open BBC that you probably have begun to see recently. So, the Creative Archive, which was kicked off by Paula, and it's going from strength to strength. It's part of that, and obviously we launched a couple of weeks ago our open source website. Sorry, Paula's giggling for some reason. She's got a fit of laughter. I don't know what that is, but anyway. So, it's just pretty odd. So, there's the Creative Archive, the open source website, bbc.co.uk/open source, if you haven't seen that. Check it out. Yeah, it's part of a greater open BBC, which I hope you guys see us doing, and we're kind of continuing to push for it. It's something we feel quite passionate about, and certainly something that we want to see going forward. But the other reason why I personally wanted to do Backstage was to identify and showcase talent out there, you guys, doing cool stuff, and making sure that we can create a good platform on which we can show that off to the world, and obviously anyone can come along and look at the Backstage website, peers, other companies, the BBC obviously has a good look, and we want everyone to look at some of the great stuff that's being built out there. And I kind of like to think of this as to the 21st century. It's a bit buzzwordy, but I mean, it is in the BBC's public service nature to be doing this kind of stuff, I think. But ultimately, the reason why I wanted to do Backstage, and I was really pleased to be part of it, was it attempts to encourage and support those who have provided much of the innovation on the internet, the passionate and highly skilled and public-spirited developers and designers, and many of whom volunteer their time and effort, and many of you are in this room to do today. I've been to the last NotCon last year, and I think I had that in mind when I was working on Backstage, and thinking to myself, a lot of the guys here are going to be people who are quite interested in doing this kind of stuff. And there really are so many people who want to participate, which is really cool, and we're already building things around BBC content, which was outside of Backstage. They were hacking stuff up, and so it wasn't quite legal, but personally I was thinking, this is brilliant, there's some great innovation going on here. So I thought to myself, we should definitely be part of that. And then it turned out other people in the BBC as well were interested in doing something similar. James Baldwell, who's in the room somewhere, was involved in setting up Backstage as well, and also Tom Nismore, who had a big involvement. I was just a cog in a much bigger machine, but together we brought together Backstage, kind of based on these kind of values. So what are we offering? I should go very briefly, as I said, you may have already gone to the site. BBC News, BBC Sport RSS feeds. We actually make those available for commercial use, in that you can put them on a commercial website as well if you want to do that, but then you can't participate in Backstage because we're non-commercial. But we do have the RSS feeds, which allow you to reproduce those on your own site and do cool things with them. Some really interesting travel XML data, which is quite comprehensive, of train, road delays and things. People building some interesting stuff with that. Some threads from the BBC message board. There are loads of them, so there's lots of threads and interesting things to be done there. And of course, we've got some podcasting feeds we did recently, and we've already seen some interesting Backstage and podcasting work as well. And there's other stuff as well. Plus there's stuff that we're going to launch today as well. And what's the deal? Well, it's strictly non-commercial. Backstage is kind of the ethic it comes from. It's kind of people like yourselves who are passionate for what we're doing, and that's the basis that we're able to make the content available. So it's strictly non-commercial, and we'd like to see people remixing and working with other providers as well, obviously where their license permits. But that's cool. Mixing with Yahoo, mixing with Google, delicious, it's all cool. And unlike perhaps some of the other developer networks, perhaps, I don't know, but we are quite keen to be really clear that you own the intellectual property of the prototypes that you build. Obviously, we retain the copyright to the content, the actual content that we provide, but the rest of it, you own the intellectual property, and what you then choose to do with that is up to you. And I think that's a key part of this, that we're not out to rip off your ideas, or steal them, or anything like that. We want to play fair, and we want to create a dialogue, and if we see stuff that's good, we want to work with you, rather than, undermining you or taking the rug underneath you by nicking your content, or your prototypes, or anything like that. It's just not what we're about. And of course, when you submit your work to Backstage, we showcase it to the world. And as I just mentioned previously, that's us having a look at it, that's our competitors having a look at it, that's anyone who wants to have a look at it. And of course, if they then want to contact you to discuss what you're doing, that's cool as well. There's no kind of formal time with the BBC specifically or anything like that. It's just kind of open and fair, I think. So yeah, we want to work with the producers of successful prototypes. So there is kind of a series of layers and a scale that we want the prototypes to go over, so that we can actually realise the good prototypes into something even better, and hopefully perhaps mature them for the BBC website. So if you build something successful, we're keen to work with you to try and iterate it further. If you've got some kind of you haven't quite got there's something that you need to buy to make yours better, maybe some extra skills that you don't have, maybe just more time. If you build something that looks really good, we're keen to work with you and see what we can do on that. And ultimately, we do want to implement some of the really cool stuff back into the organisation and into the main BBC site. And obviously, you own the intellectual property, so we're already working with frameworks so that we can get into a non-exclusive or exclusive licensing with you, so that we can ultimately, if you want to, take it to the next level, and the ultimate level, I guess, and actually putting it on the BBC website, if it's really good. And so far, I've seen many of them that are, so that's good. So, Today is about actually launching the site out of beta. We were in beta, I think, partly just to we weren't quite sure what the reaction to the site was going to be, whether people would kind of get it, maybe they wouldn't, because we're a content website as opposed to a service website like Yahoo and Google and so on. But it was really well received, and people seemed to like it. So we kind of listened to some of the feedback, we changed a few things, but that was all good during beta. But we are quite committed to this, which is why we're taking it out of beta. It's not one of these fashionable perpetual betas. It's a proper thing that we're interested in looking at properly. So with that in mind, and I've spent ages doing this, so please watch carefully. And if you like your cheesy PowerPoint animations, there's a few more to come, don't worry.
Open source, how you did that?
Open source, how I did it? I think it's on the PowerPoint, you can download it. So, new feeds. This one isn't quite new, I guess. We've had it out for about a week and a half, 2 weeks now. This is the BBC TV and radio schedule information for the next 7 days. It's essentially the data that you need to build a BBC EPG. And we're making that available in TV Anytime format, which is the BBC format which BBC Research and Development are working with the TV Anytime Forum on producing. It's quite a rich data XML schema, a lot of schedule information, genre information in there. So hopefully there's some cool things and some good opportunities for people to build interesting things around that. And the other thing which we're going to be announcing today is that BBC Weather, in association with the Met Office, we are going to be offering BBC Weather on the site as well, so that would be really cool. I was hoping to have that for you today, as an awful excuse, but due to the recent events over the last couple of days, some of the people who had worked on the site and the live site work to get this done had to actually work on immediate operational issues with serving all of the hits. I think we had on Thursday almost 50,000 hits a second to the BBC website at one point, so understandably they had to work on that, and so I am sorry we haven't actually quite got this up to today, but I'm hoping that this will be up Monday, Tuesday. So you'll be able to request a developer key, same kind of idea as other developer networks, and start requesting BBC weather data. And we're going to build a few APIs on top of that, and hopefully add some more complicated and sophisticated web feeds as well. At the moment we've just got sort of 5-day stuff, but there'll be even more coming. But again, please let us know what you want. I mean, we have got lots of data at our disposal. It's a case of knowing what people want, some of the cool things you might want to do. So if you've got some ideas on that, send them through to me, and I'll certainly make sure that we can have a look at releasing the right data that might help that. And there is even more to come over time. I mean, the BBC understands the importance of RSS and realises that it's something we need to make sure that we're making available. So as new sites get launched and new sites get looked at, we're trying to launch RSS wherever we can. And those RSS feeds that make it available across the BBC should, and okay, there's a caveat there because I can't guarantee it, but should, where possible, be Backstage compatible. So you should be able to incorporate those into Backstage and into your Backstage projects. And the APIs are coming. I know we're not really a proper developer network until we've got proper hardcore APIs, but they are coming. As I said, we are kind of content orientated at the moment, but we have got some services that we're trying to make available as well. And as we make those available, we'll certainly bring even more complicated, sophisticated APIs on board. But again, part of this, and my big role is two roles in the BBC, I guess. It's an advocate for the BBC and what we're doing is Backstage to you guys, but it's also as an advocate for you guys back into the BBC. And it's me that goes around and wants to say to people, we really need to release this feed, we really need to make that available on Backstage. There's so many cool things we could do with it. So, you know, if you've got ideas, if you've got things that you want to see us do, send them through to me. And I will certainly go away and try my best to make them available, because there's a whole list of stuff that we can do, and there's only so much time. But if we know what's popular and what might be interesting, then you know, let me know, and we'll try and concentrate on that. So there's also an announcement today of the inaugural Backstage.bbc.co.uk competition. So At the moment, you can just submit anything you want to Backstage, unsolicited. You know, you come up with a great idea, send it through, it's brilliant. But what we also want to see is we've got some objectives, we've got some ideas and things that we think could really be quite interesting to look at and research and develop a little bit more. So we've got people in the BB looking at some of these, but we also want to make them available to you, because at the end of the day, you guys are going to come up with ideas that we would just never have thought of. I mean, we're some of the crowds, the fact that we're sitting in front of this data all the time and you guys have got different perspectives is brilliant. So we're really keen to see if you've got some ideas and you want to participate with some of the objectives that we've got. And ultimately they will help improve the BBC website, which again is a public service website, so it's kind of feeding into that public service concept. So the first competition today is we want you to innovate and come up with prototypes that demonstrate ways of exploring BBC TV schedule. As one journalist asked me, well, what's the name of the competition? I mean, I haven't got a name for it yet, it's kind of that. So if you can think of a name, let me know, because I haven't got one yet. But so we want you to build around tonight, to come up with ideas around the TV schedule. But what does that mean? So we've kind of listed some ideas here, which I have to thank my colleague James Stone as coming up with some of them. As he said to me, you've ripped off all my ideas on your presentation. So things you might want to do with BBC scheduling data, if you're interested in participating, and I hope as many of you as possible will. You might want to combine with some web services, such as the Delicious and Technorati, or open up some of the programs to external annotation. Might be quite interesting. There's a lot of genre information available in the TV Anytime format that I was talking about just now. And you might not be able to build something to pull out films or comedies or particular genre or particular program type, like signed or subtitled programming. Vertical searching by genre, quite an interesting idea potentially. You might want to introduce a social element to a schedule or channel, and some opportunities there, bookmarking, rating, voting, that kind of thing. And obviously some interesting things you might want to be able to do. You could do with alerts and client push, so SMSing people when new TV programs are on, email broadcasts, desktop reminders, I don't know. And finally, you might have your own ideas as well. These are just kind of things to keep to sort of get the creative juices flowing. But you might have existing data from the BBC or other external sources, or new ways of tagging programs. I don't know. You guys will no doubt come up with some really cool ideas which we would just never have thought of. And so, with that in mind, we'd like you to participate. And if you can use the TV anytime, extra points, because then it'll make your prototype truly dynamic. But if you're not into doing the TV anytime format, which, then have a look at the schedule data we've got on what's on. But what's the point of doing this? Why would you want to do this? Well, hopefully you want to do it because I genuinely think it's a cool thing. But what we're also offering is a brand new, famous brand, Mount server. And the price gets better because not only that, you will be, if you win, a guest of the Backstage crew to the BBC, have a look around the BBC. I'm sure many of you would agree that the server just pales in insignificance to the second part of the prize. And just in case you hadn't contemplated how fantastic this really is, ultimately, let me just skip back to the previous slide a second, and it gives me an opportunity to do that again as well. So the criteria is we're looking at the level of innovation around some of your prototypes that you might come up with, and also the quality of the execution. It'll be judged by a celebrity panel. Means I don't know who's going to judge against, but it'll be someone famous. I hope. Not me. I'm going to get into famous. I had an ad there about Danny O'Brien today, sort of that. Let's not go there. I mean, what is being famous? No, let's not go there. So as I said, you'll win a server. I'm just going to do that again because it's so cool. Even if I do say so myself. So full details will be on the site on Monday, and we're going to close the competition 5th of September. So if you're interested in participating, please do. I hope you have a think of some ideas and build a few things. Get them to us by 5th of September, please. And if you're interested in participating, send me an email if you want any kind of further information or anything like that, or whatever. So I just want to showcase a couple of things that people have built recently with Backstage, which are particularly cool. At this point, come on. Here. Sorry, I should let this all gear up my plot. Sorry about that. It does. Just chat amongst yourselves for a second. And so, yep.
While Spencer's just organising, I had an announcement I didn't remember to make at the beginning. Master Spencer, Ewan says, if you had your iPod shuffled, and those of you who know what that means will understand, and want to get it unshuffled, so you have your own shuffle that isn't shuffleable, bang, then you can, in the break, go downstairs and argue amongst yourselves. How are you going to identify your own shuffle when it's not shuffle is a great note. Yeah. And also in about 10 minutes time, it's going to be questions from the floor for Ben, so think up questions. I will now hand you back to the scheduled program.
So I'm really sorry about that. I should have put my stuff together early. So what we're looking at here is a really interesting prototype that was done by a guy called Don Ramsey, and it's basically a number of things which other guys have and girls worked on Backstage in terms of putting different types of data into a map environment. But this is good because it kind of puts everything together in one. So this is coming from the BBC travel site, and if I click on here, you can kind of see that there's some kind of blockage on the southbound side. Shed load of paint cans. Really into detail. So there you go. I'm almost disappointed it didn't tell me what colour the paint was. So, and there's all sorts of interesting things here in terms of you can do, and you can see this person's mixing in flicker as well here, which is quite cool, so we can see a picture of watching if only the paint had been shed on the cement, then we could have watched the paint and the cement dry, but yes, so that's quite nice. And the other thing I'll show you, this isn't much to look at because it's really a podcast, as it loads up here. But what is quite nice about it is, well, let me first tell you that when iTunes launched the podcasting aspect of their service a couple of weeks ago, this was actually at the top of their most popular podcast. It is actually a guys, I think they've got guys doing Backstage. It's a text-to-speech converter that basically reads some BBC News for you, converts it into speech, and then you obviously can save that as a podcast on your iPod. It kind of does sound a bit sort of dozens, gilded, Egyptian blasts, kind of Dalek style. But unbelievably, it was actually the most popular podcast when iTunes first launched. And I have to say, a few people in BBC were a bit annoyed because we offering quite a lot of official podcasts, which were much further down the list. So, but you know, I was championing the user and like, yeah, this is great. But we just. But this, I think, for me, is one of the coolest things at the moment someone has built. I think Matthew may even be here. Yeah. So this has got quite a serious aspect to it as well, I guess. Obviously, there were some tragic events that happened on the 7th, which I will just scroll down to the bottom. And what this is it's diff for news, for those of you who are of the techie persuasion. Basically, showing you the difference between one source and another is obviously diff, popular program. This is diff for news, and it shows you each time a journalist updates and makes a change on the BBC News website front page, it shows you here, which is fantastic. fantastic. But obviously this day's news I think was particularly sad, but I think it quite kind of shows you some of the interesting ways you can just kind of get a picture of how the day went. I mean, you can see here, just on the morning of the 7th, we just found out that we won the Olympic Games, and people were sort of quite jubilant, as it says there. And let me just scroll back quickly because there's lots here. So you can see there lots of pictures. And I think what it shows you is the day went on. So we got our days ready for, we were thinking of climate change, which was the big issue of the G8. And obviously as the day went on, we suddenly found out there'd been a bang. And it became top news, and we realised it was quite serious. And as you go through, and I'm just going to continue scrolling up, you can just get an idea. Here we took off the Olympics in because it was quite important, obviously, to concentrate on the immediate incident. And as more pictures came in, it's obviously the traffic jam cameras that we used to begin with, and then we had some proper photographs, which really showed how horrific it really was, I guess. And as you can see, I'm just going to scroll quickly because there's loads of it. You can see, as the day went on, you've got a really nice log of what happened, which I think is really going to be important going forward, and sort of remembering what actually happened on that day. So, I know you guys already tapped him off, but can we have another round of applause for me? And that's obviously for every day. You can have a look at the news, and there's loads of other interesting days as well, perhaps some more happier news as well, hopefully. But anyway, that's me. Thank you very much for listening. Hopefully, some people might be interested in participating in Backstage if you're not already. But if you have got questions or if you've got anything, come and give me grab my hand. He wants the mic. He wants the mic.
Questions now.
Questions now.
Questions now.
Hello, Steph Mankiewicz. You said that it's all available on a non-commercial license, and I've been involved in a few things where something that started off as non-commercial has accidentally ended up building a lot of commercial value. And what do you have in place, and how are you going to deal with that?
So I'm going to come up to ask you just both questions. So is that commercial value that you wish to exploit yourself, or commercial value that you wish to... I mean, what exactly do you wish to confirm? I've got things to share.
Some potentially exploitable commercial value. When we get out on the street, it started off it was just a demo site, and then it turned into a really big thing. But I can see out of this and all this stuff, people are going to create things that other people are going to want to create, that pay money for, or are going to want, somebody's going to want to buy.
Sure.
And are we not going to be allowed to do that? Is it never going to be possible, or we're going to have to share it or give it all to you?
I'm itchy because now I really want to answer the question. So, the interesting thing about Backstage is obviously it's BBC providing data, and we're not going to be looking at, you can't at the moment commercialise a product that you're using with that data. But if you find that there's a commercial value for the thing that you build, you own the intellectual property. Once you've demonstrated that there's a commercial value to it, then you are obviously able to go and seek out a source of that data from someone who will provide it to you with a commercial license. The BBC, in most cases, and I don't want to get too much into the kind of legal stuff because I'm not a lawyer, but obviously the BBC can't provide BBC data to people for commercial use in the UK. Generally speaking, again, I don't really want to concentrate too much on that aspect, but obviously you can go and search for that information somewhere else, and if you've demonstrated a commercial need, it may well be that you want to go and buy that information from a different provider, and obviously you've then actually got a commercial service that you've built, and we're happy to have helped you to incubate that, I guess. I mean, we would kind of hope you might come back to us, and we might be able to see if there's something we can do at the BBC in terms of making it go forward. But if you did want to make something truly commercial out of it, then, as I said, you do own the intellectual property of what you build, and what you therefore choose to do with that is up to you. Does that kind of answer your question near enough?
Let's do that.
Good.
Ben, do we go to the middle microphone? Sure. Anybody over here? Right, we... Feel like making promises.
So just explain the link between Backstage and BBC open source. They kind of came across BBC open source and TV times there and realised that we're just connecting all our data.
Sure, so it's not the open and obviously there's crossovers. The open source website is mainly about programs, scripts, things like that in the BBC, which we've obviously written, which we think might have some kind of value to you, all the way up through to, we'd like to therefore launch on an open source license, all the way up to some of the interesting codec work that we're doing with Derek as well, for example. So it's kind of a different aspect of it. I mean, it's open source stuff that we're making available rather than sort of, so it's kind of separate. I'm not quite sure, is there a specific aspect in terms of the crossovers that you were thinking and comparing about, or just?
I just wanted to understand more, just to better understand the relationship.
Sure.
So for example, if I entered your competition and I use some of the open source TV Anytime Java APIs you've got, what? I'm just trying to understand better what the relationship is between the two.
Sure. Well, I think I understand. I mean, yeah, you can use the Java API for TV Anytime in your application. So yeah, but you don't have to. Maybe if there's, I don't know, maybe there's something else I'm not getting to you're specifically saying. We can take offline perhaps, because Ben's jiggling up and down. If he jiggles too much, I'm going to see what's under his kill again.
Again? Yes, I'm wondering about collaborations with the authorities for tipster lines and all of that. Is that a possibility, not just for the competition, but for other BBC offshoots? Chicago Crimes, for example, is a website that's built off of Yahoo Maps. I'm just wondering if there are comparable ways in which the populace can utilize BBC materials and also whatever police materials are out there in order to make this terrorist situation go away.
Right. I don't think I have an answer to world peace with Backstage. It does a lot of things, but it doesn't do that. But obviously, I mean, you saw previously some mapping stuff people have done. We're quite keen for people to fuse BBC content into maps and fusing other content as well from other providers. So obviously, we can be part of a greater value that someone might build out of that they build a prototype channel to include BBC data. So obviously, the crime scene is an example. If someone launched UK crime data, which I was actually speaking to someone recently about trying to get, not necessarily for Backstage, but just thinking it would be a really nice thing to have. Then you could obviously cross-reference crime data and BBC news stories, etc. I don't know, some interesting things perhaps there. At the top there, what's the bank?
You're going to obviously be hoping to get a lot of content back from people into the site. How are we going to be able to search that through the site? Is it just free form? Are you only going to have a quality threshold? Is there going to be some sort of judging committee? And what about issues of age restrictions?
So you're thinking of people submitting work back on Backstage. If you submit something and it meets the Backstage terms and conditions and everything, it's not against any of our policy, then we will put it up. I mean, we'll put up anything as long as it's not obviously against the terms or anything you obviously couldn't put up. Age restrictions, so if you're under 16, then you need to get permission of your parent or guardian, but you're more than happy, you're more than welcome to participate as well. There are some terms and conditions specifically for minors on the legal, so you need to have, but it is basically just making sure that you get your parents' permission. And I'm saying that because I started hacking around and building things like this when I was about 15, 16, many years ago. So we are aware that there are a lot of people who might be under the age of 18 who actually can contribute something quite interesting to Backstage, so we want them to participate as well.
And a follow-up question, how is an end user going to search through the content? How is it presented to everybody here who can't do this?
It's presented at the moment as a movable type website, which I will be honest with you is not necessarily going to scale to how we need it to, but we'll look at that. It's a nice problem to have if we have too many that we can't search through. But we'll certainly look at categorising and probably adding a search engine on there as well. I think categorisation is probably where we'll go with that.
That's a good Backstage product, isn't it?
Yeah, if someone wants to build it for us, even better, but I'm really do it. It's important.
Question from over this side of the room.
Actually, two questions. Firstly, you mentioned the APIs.
Yeah.
Could you just tell us a bit about when they will be available, what they will be able to do, and will they recommend it? The second question is, what is or will be the relationship between Backstage and ICANN Action Network?
Okay, so I'll take the last one first. There isn't at the moment any relationship with ICANN Action Network, as it's now called, which is the BBC's campaign site. There's a lot of data on there. I'm quite keen to try and get hold of some of that data. There's some issues over the fact that it's user-generated and we haven't obtained a license from the person anyone who's submitted data to ICANN and Action Network. Now, if they've not agreed and let us re-syndicate, and obviously we can't re-syndicate, but we're trying to look into that. And certainly I think there's a lot of interesting tie-ups with Action Network and things as campaigns, like things that people might want to do on other sites, putting data across. In terms of the APIs, there isn't a great deal of API at the moment, partly because I need to find out what people want. I want to build some APIs around some of our content. I want to know exactly what people want so that I sort of deliver to you the things that you obviously want, and interested to have a chat with you and anyone else if you've got ideas on that. We are going to have a development key system, which was what was being worked on Thursday and Friday, to be implemented, which unfortunately got delayed, but hopefully that will be around next week as well. So you'll be able to request a server 100 times an hour, I think, at the moment, and obviously you can apply for more. It'll be a kind of very similar model to many of the other developer networks.
Down the front.
Okay.
You are right.
Just want to confirm, is Backstage now open to anybody in the world, or is it UK only? And how are you going to be pushing developer effort? So for people that can write, for example, Perl or Python or that kind of thing.
Sure. So obviously the BBC is funded by licence fee payers, and that's in the UK. So I have to say that we are primarily looking at promoting innovation and creativity with Backstage in the UK, but obviously it's a global website. We all know that, you know, if anywhere in the world you can access the website, and we're more than happy for people who are outside of the UK to participate. The Robotocast podcasting demo that I gave you just saw previously got done by a chap who lives in the States. And the other question was about building up if you want. Yeah, so we're quite keen on
designers.
Sure, so we're quite keen to see designers participate as well. We ask you to submit your ideas as well, and that's about realising that yes, not everyone's going to have the skills or the time or the interest, who knows, to actually go out and build things and sort of hack-wreck code. So if you've got some interesting ideas, we'd ask you to submit them to the ideas part of the website, and hopefully other people who are participating in Backstage might pick up the idea and want to work with you on it. And obviously there's a big community on there which includes designers, and again you can sort of collaborate and sort of work together on there as well. It's not just a developer network, even though I didn't say it was a developer network, it is a designer and developer network.
I have a question.
Go on in.
What's is the definition of commercial use hard and fast, or could I sort of slap something up and put Google ads on the same page?
So again, I'm not the lawyer, I'm the techie on the project, so I don't want to give a definite answer or anything. You need to review the terms. But basically, we have seen some prototypes that have got adverts on them, and we're broadly speaking okay with that if the advertising is basically helping to kind of fund your the hosting of the site, etc. A little small bits and pieces like Google AdWords, I guess, is permissible and understandable. But if you are actually commercialising the data, are you making money from and profit from the work that you built? And obviously there's an issue there. You need to sort of review the terms and conditions specifically. And if you've got questions on that front, again, email me and I can pass them on to Alan, who surprisingly is very friendly. Not that kind of friendly. No.
The BBC is very friendly.
On one hand, sticking up to XML seems really, really simple. On the other hand, it's fantastic and make a big thing of it. Could you, particularly in the BBC, could you talk about some of the political and technical issues you had to overcome, possibly your own?
We asked the questions, and I've got bosses and co-workers here, and everyone's looking down. So, okay, so if I came on to a meeting one day and said, myself, James Broadwell, from Lucy Morpheus, have got some interesting ideas for making all this content available, what do you think? I couldn't necessarily say that the whole BBC was like, this is brilliant, let's do it. News were very up for it already. So News, which is actually the department I used to work in before coming to Backstage, had been open for a while to the idea of just making our RSS feeds available, making sure they could be on people's sites, obviously increased reach, it's useful. And I think with that, News took the lead, and it was certainly helpful to use that as a kind of examples for the rest of the BBC to then follow. Parts of the BBC are more into it than others, but that is changing, and I think genuinely people are realising that the open BBC approach is definitely something that's worth, it's beneficial for us, it's beneficial for you, the users, and the audience. So, yeah, I mean, it's getting there, and I think over time, as we build, as I show more prototypes to people around the BBC, it certainly gets easier to justify why we should be doing this. So keep the prototypes coming, and I'll try and keep the data coming, and I think it kind of works like that.
That seems a good place to wrap up the media.